To begin using overtime calculations in EVX software, we must do a couple of steps first. We must first ensure that the correct plugins are installed and activated. To do so, navigate to the settings, plugin, and search overtime. Once you have overtime there, you can activate or deactivate. In this case, we have already activated the overtime. We now go back, and once the plugin is active, overtime calculations for payroll and overtime calculations for billing will appear in the system configuration panel. Payroll versus billing. These two modules work similarly but serve different purposes. Payroll used to calculate how much we pay our employees for their time, including regular hours, overtime, and double overtime. In billing, it's used to calculate what we bill clients for that time. While the logic is similar, payroll and billing are calculated independently and can be configured completely differently. Let's now go to payroll configuration. Within the payroll settings, we defined regular hours per day, typically 8 hours, overtime threshold, the number of hours after regular hours that qualify as overtime. In this example, we have 2 hours, or double overtime, hours beyond the overtime threshold. Examples, hours past 10 total in a day. As you can see there, we have all of those options, and we can also have calculate overtime for these time entries and the date. That is how we start to configure payroll configuration. So let's go to an example. If an employee's hourly rate is 100, the overtime threshold is 150 hours. The double time overtime is $200. Let's go now to billing configuration. The billing section includes the same fields and logic, but applies to what is charged to clients or projects instead of what is paid to employees. A key setting here is how overtime is calculated: by client, by project, or by employee only. By client, if 8 hours are worked in a single client, only then overtime is triggered. Also, double overtime when overtime has been passed. By project, these work the same as by client, but now calculations are done by project. And by employees only is calculated regardless of client, project, based solely on the employee's total hours per rate, but this is rarely used. If an employee works 15 hours across 3 different clients, 5 hours each, payroll will calculate overtime since the employee worked more than 8 hours. But for billing, no. Overtime will apply because they didn't exceed 8 hours with any single client. We are now gonna head to the time module. In the time module, we can filter by employee and a date range. In this case, we're choosing Danielle Smart, and we are choosing this particular date. To analyze the hours, you're gonna see regular time, overtime, and double overtime. These 3 should always add up the total work time at the bottom. The values also appear in 2 sets of columns. For payroll, what we pay the employee, regular overtime, double overtime, and regular time. And for billing, what we charge the client, regular time with the parentheses billing, overtime with parentheses billing, and double overtime with the parentheses billing. Since payroll and billing are calculated differently, the distributions may not match. So here in the time entries, I am going to show you an example. We decided to go with Danielle Smart. So here, she worked that day for 16 hours and 30 minutes. And for payroll, she has 8 hours of regular time, 2 hours of overtime, and 6 hours with 30 minutes with double overtime. For billing, it all depends on which client or project the time was assigned to. The last two time entries you're seeing here are from the example client Sinova Quartz. In this view, you will see other clients, but the only client that we are charging overtime will be Sinova Quartz. In this example, you see that Danielle dedicated 13 hours to the company, and you will be charging 5 more hours divided by 2 of overtime that we have in our configuration and 3 to double overtime. So the calculation goes like this. You're going to do 2 hours of regular time in the billing category, 2 hours of overtime for billing as well, and 3 hours for double overtime. If we scroll to the right, we are now going to see the total cost for the billing for Danielle's workday on May the 2nd. That is the date that we put on the top at the very beginning. If you do have any more questions, please let us know. We're here to help. Thank you.